A poor girl delivering food to a mysterious client finds he's actually a billionaire. But when? It was a cold, rainy night, the kind where every drop hitting your skin feels like a reminder of how heavy life can get. Emma Davis tightened her grip on the steering wheel of her beat-up Honda Civic as she navigated through slick streets, windshield wipers struggling to keep up with the downpour. Her phone buzzed incessantly, another delivery order flashing on the screen. It was her 12th run of the night. An exhaustion weighed down her body after a 14-hour shift. But she couldn't stop now. Every dollar mattered when you were a single mother trying to provide for your 3-year-old son, Oliver, or Ollie, as everyone called him. The photo of Ollie taped to her dashboard, a toothless grin lighting up his face, was all that kept her going some nights, especially nights like this one, when the rain made roads treacherous and customers tipped poorly because their food arrived slightly soggy despite her best efforts. 6 months ago, Emma's life had been completely different. She'd worked part-time as a graphic designer from home while caring for Ollie, living comfortably in a modest suburban house with her husband Derek. Then everything changed overnight. One day, Derek vanished without warning, leaving behind an empty closet, a wedding ring on the kitchen counter, and a note that read, "I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry." No explanation, just gone. In the weeks that followed, Emma discovered he'd drained their joint account and maxed out credit cards gambling online. Suddenly, she found herself selling their home, moving into a tiny apartment in a rough part of town, and juggling multiple jobs just to survive. By day, she delivered food. By night, she designed logos for whoever would hire her. All while sleeping barely 4 hours at a stretch. That night, fate took an unexpected turn as Emma pulled up to Gloucester Towers, a luxury high-rise in downtown's wealthiest district. The app instructed her to deliver Thai food to the penthouse suite. "Mr. Wilson," it said simply. Emma sighed. Penthouse deliveries always made her uncomfortable. The private elevator, the polished mirrors reflecting her disheveled appearance, the stark contrast between her worn uniform and the opulence surrounding her. She left the food on the side table as usual, rang the bell, and turned to leave. But then, something stopped her. A crash from inside, followed by what sounded like a groan of pain. Against her better judgment, Emma stepped further into the apartment. What she found changed both their lives forever. On the floor beside an overturned coffee table lay a man in his early 40s, clutching his chest and breathing heavily. Without hesitation, Emma rushed to help him. He shook his head weakly when she asked about calling an ambulance, but directed her to medication in the bathroom. After ensuring he took it, Emma stayed with him until his breathing steadied. Only then did she notice the details. Expensive clothes, rumpled beyond recognition, days' worth of stubble, bloodshot eyes. This wasn't just any client. It was someone who looked as broken as she felt. When he finally spoke, thanking her hoarsely, Emma learned his name, James Wilson. James didn't seem like the typical billionaire CEO you'd imagine owning a penthouse filled with floor-to-ceiling windows and breathtaking views of the city skyline. Instead, his apartment felt eerily empty. No personal photos, no books, nothing but pristine furniture and emptiness. Bottles lined the kitchen counters, unopened mail piled on desks, and silence hung heavy in the air. Despite his wealth, there was something profoundly lonely about him, something Emma recognized all too well. And so, when James admitted he had no one coming to check on him, Emma did something even she didn't expect. She invited him to stay at her place for the night, not out of pity, but because she understood what it meant to feel utterly alone. The Drive back to Emma's small apartment was quiet, except for the rhythmic swish of windshield wipers, battling the relentless rain. James sat stiffly in the passenger seat, looking oddly out of place, yet strangely vulnerable. Once inside her cozy but humble space, James seemed genuinely taken aback, not by its lack of luxury, but by the warmth and care evident in every corner. Family photos lined the walls, toys were neatly organized, and mismatched furniture told stories of second chances and hard work. For the first time in months, maybe years, James smiled sincerely. They shared tea, talked briefly about their lives, and eventually settled into separate spaces for sleep. Yet neither could shake off the feeling that they'd stumbled onto something bigger than themselves. The next morning, over breakfast, prepared by James himself, their conversation deepened. Emma learned that James wasn't just any businessman. He was the founder and CEO of Wilson Innovations, a tech company revolutionizing solar energy storage. But things weren't as glamorous as they seemed. A hostile takeover attempt by his own board of directors loomed over him. Led by his former best friend and COO, Marcus Chen, betrayal, stress, and isolation had pushed James to the brink. Meanwhile, Emma opened up about her struggles since Derek left, revealing layers of resilience and sacrifice beneath her weary exterior. Their connection grew stronger, built on shared experiences of loss and survival. Just as things started falling into place, reality hit hard. Emma received a call saying Ollie was sick with a fever. Without hesitation, James offered his car and driver to take them to her mother's house, where Ollie was staying. At the pharmacy, James surprised Emma by picking up not only medicine, but also toys and books to cheer Ollie up. Back at Emma's apartment, they spent hours tending to the sick child together, forming bonds deeper than either anticipated. Late that evening, James stumbled upon Emma's graphic design portfolio, saved on her laptop. Impressed by her talent, he offered her a job as creative director at Wilson Innovations. 6 figures, full benefits, flexible hours. It sounded impossible, almost surreal. But before Emma could fully process the offer, another bombshell dropped. Her landlord informed her that the building was being sold, giving tenants only 30 days to vacate. As if sensing her turmoil, James extended an extraordinary invitation. He asked Emma and Ollie to move into his penthouse temporarily, rent-free, while she figured out her next steps. The idea was madness, yet tempting. Accepting meant stepping into a world far removed from hers, trusting a man she barely knew. Declining meant facing eviction alone. Before Emma could decide, whispers of gossip began circulating among James's eyes. Colleagues fueled by Marcus, who saw Emma as nothing more than a PR stunt to sway shareholders before the crucial board vote. Tensions mounted as the deadline approached. Would James win back control of his company? Could Emma trust him enough to accept his offer? Or were they both walking straight into disaster? And just like that, 2 lives intertwined by circumstance stood at the edge of uncertainty, caught between hope and fear, betrayal and redemption. Little did they know, someone else was watching closely, determined to ensure James lost everything, including the fragile friendship he'd forged with Emma and Ollie. The stage was set for a battle unlike any other, where hearts would be tested, secrets uncovered, and destinies rewritten. But for now, all anyone could do was wait and wonder what tomorrow held. The days following the board meeting were a blur of activity for both Emma and James. While James worked tirelessly to rebuild trust within Wilson Innovations, Emma began settling into her new role as creative director. It wasn't just a job. It felt like stepping into a world she'd only dreamed about. For the first time in months, She could breathe without the constant weight of financial insecurity pressing down on her chest. But with this newfound stability, came questions that lingered in the back of her mind. Was she ready for this? Could she handle the pressure of working alongside someone who still faced enemies, determined to undermine him at every turn? James seemed different too, not just because he was sleeping better or eating regular meals, but because there was a spark in his eyes again. He spoke passionately during meetings, rallying his team around the vision of making sustainable energy accessible to everyone. Yet beneath his confident exterior, Emma noticed cracks forming. Late at night, when the penthouse grew quiet, except for the hum of distant traffic, she'd catch him staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows, lost in thought. Once, she asked him what he was thinking about, and he simply said, "If I lose this fight, it won't just be my company on the line. It'll be everything I've worked for, and maybe even us." That word, us, hung between them like an unspoken promise, neither fully understood yet. Their friendship had deepened quickly, forged through shared struggles and late-night conversations. Ollie adored James, often tugging at his sleeve to show off new drawings or asking him to read bedtime stories. Watching them together made Emma's heart swell with something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years: hope. But hope was fragile, especially when shadowed by threats from people like Marcus Chen. Marcus didn't waste any time escalating his attacks. Rumors spread throughout the industry faster than wildfire, painting Emma as nothing more than a PR stunt, orchestrated by James to sway public opinion. Anonymous articles appeared online, questioning her qualifications, accusing James of nepotism, and insinuating their relationship went beyond professionalism. At first, Emma tried to brush it off, telling herself these whispers couldn't touch her if she ignored them. But then came the phone calls, harsh voices demanding she leave James alone, warning her she was playing with forces she didn't understand. One night, after receiving another threatening message, Emma broke down in tears, clutching her phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. James found her like that, sitting on the edge of her bed with Ollie asleep in the next room. Without saying a word, he sat beside her and pulled her close. "You don't deserve this," he murmured, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "None of it." His voice cracked slightly, betraying the anger simmering beneath his calm demeanor. "I should have seen this coming. I should have protected you. It's not your fault," Emma replied, though her voice wavered. "People like Marcus will always find ways to hurt others when they're scared. They twist the truth until it becomes ugly." She paused, taking a shaky breath. "But I'm not going anywhere. Not because of him." Her words surprised even herself. Just weeks ago, she might have run, retreating into the safety of anonymity. Now she realized running wouldn't solve anything. Not for her, not for James, and certainly not for Ollie, who deserved a life where he didn't have to hide from shadows. Still, the tension between them grew thicker with each passing day, feeding off the uncertainty looming over their heads. Meanwhile, subplots began weaving themselves into the fabric of their lives. Emma's landlord, emboldened by rumors circulating about her sudden change in fortune, decided to accelerate the eviction process. What was supposed to be a 30-day notice turned into a demand for immediate vacating. Citing alleged violations of lease terms Emma knew nothing about, legal battles loomed ahead, adding another layer of stress to an already overwhelming situation. Then there was Derek, Emma's ex-husband, who resurfaced unexpectedly one evening. Showing up at her doorstep, drunk and desperate, he begged for forgiveness, claiming he'd hit rock bottom and wanted to make amends for Ollie's sake. Emma stood frozen, torn between the remnants of old wounds and the faintest flicker of pity. Through all of this, James remained steadfast, offering support in ways both big and small. When Emma needed legal advice, he connected her with top attorneys. When Derek showed up, James quietly stepped in, ensuring the confrontation stayed civil while giving Emma space to decide how to handle it. Yet despite his efforts, the strain of protecting those he cared about began to show. His health deteriorated slightly. The heart condition flared up again, forcing him to rely more heavily on medication. Each setback fueled Marcus's determination to exploit any weakness he could find. As the final vote approached, the stakes reached a fever pitch. Marcus launched a last-ditch campaign to sway undecided shareholders, leaking confidential documents that painted James's open-source initiative as financially reckless. The media frenzy that followed cast doubt over Wilson Innovation's future, sending stock prices plummeting. Employees grew anxious, unsure whether their jobs would survive the fallout. Even some of James's closest allies started wavering, questioning whether loyalty to him outweighed the risks of staying on board. Emma watched it all unfold with a growing sense of dread. She threw herself into preparing for the presentation, revising slides, refining visuals, and rehearsing talking points until they became second nature. Late nights blurred together, filled with coffee-fueled brainstorming sessions and whispered debates over strategy. Despite the chaos, moments of connection kept her grounded, like when James surprised her with takeout from her favorite Thai restaurant, or when Ollie proudly presented them with a crayon drawing of their makeshift family. These fleeting glimpses of normalcy reminded her why they were fighting so hard. But as the day of reckoning drew near, cracks began to form, even within their inner circle. A key investor hinted at pulling funding unless James reconsidered his stance. An anonymous tip led to allegations of corporate espionage, casting suspicion on Emma's involvement. And then, just 2 days before the crucial meeting, disaster struck. Someone hacked into Wilson Innovation's servers, stealing sensitive data and releasing it to competitors. Panic rippled through the company, and fingers pointed directly at James. Standing in the penthouse living room, surrounded by flashing news alerts and frantic phone calls, Emma felt the walls closing in. This wasn't just about business anymore. It was personal. Whoever was behind the attack wasn't just trying to destroy James professionally. They wanted to obliterate everything he cared about. As she looked at James, pale and exhausted, but refusing to give up, she realized the true cost of standing by his side. Love, loyalty, sacrifice. All of it demanded more than she ever imagined. And now, with less than 48 hours until the final showdown, the question remained: would their bond be enough to withstand the storm? Or would the weight of betrayal, fear, and greed tear them apart forever? The victory at the board meeting should have been the end of their struggles, but instead, it felt like the beginning of something far more complicated. Marcus didn't take the loss gracefully. Within days, whispers of sabotage began to circulate. Anonymous, leaks to the press, accusations of corporate espionage, and even threats targeting Emma and Ollie. James tried to shield them, hiring private security for the penthouse, and ensuring Emma's new role as creative director was officially announced to quash any lingering rumors. But the tension between him and Marcus wasn't over. It was festering, waiting for the right moment to explode. One evening, as Emma worked late on a campaign pitch in her newly assigned office at Wilson Innovations, she received an alarming email. It contained screenshots of confidential company documents she had never seen before, marked with her name and signature. Her stomach dropped. Someone was setting her up, trying to frame her as the mole Marcus had hinted at during the board meeting. Panic set in as she realized this wasn't just about discrediting her. It was about destroying James all over again. James arrived at her office moments later, his face pale. "Emma, we need to talk." He closed the door behind him, his voice low but urgent. "Marcus has filed a formal complaint against you. He's claiming you accessed restricted files without authorization." Emma stared at him, stunned. I would never." Her voice cracked under the weight of betrayal. James held up a hand. "I believe you, but proving it won't be easy. Whoever did this knew exactly how to make it look bad. Determined not to let fear dictate their next move, they decided to confront the issue head-on. With James's support, Emma agreed to cooperate fully with the internal investigation. Meanwhile, James dug deeper into the origins of the leaked documents. What he uncovered shocked them both. The breach hadn't come from within Wilson Innovations. It had been orchestrated externally by a rival tech firm eager to capitalize on the chaos Marcus had stirred up. The pieces clicked into place when they discovered that Derek, Emma's ex-husband, had been working as a consultant for the rival company. Desperate to pay off his gambling debts, he had sold information stolen from James's servers after hacking into Emma's personal laptop. Confronting Derek was one of the hardest things Emma ever did. When James tracked him down to a dingy motel room on the outskirts of the city, Emma insisted on facing him alone. She walked in to find him hunched over a table littered with empty beer cans, looking like a shadow of the man she once loved. "Why, Derek?" she asked, her voice trembling with anger and sadness. He looked up, guilt etched across his face. "I didn't think it would go this far," he muttered. "They promised me enough money to start over, to fix everything." His words stung, but Emma couldn't muster pity. "You don't get to ruin my life twice," she said firmly before walking out. Armed with evidence of Derek's involvement, James presented the findings to the board. Marcus's plan unraveled quickly once the truth came to light. Not only had he colluded with a competitor, but he had also knowingly allowed false accusations to jeopardize Emma's career and safety. The fallout was swift. Marcus resigned in disgrace, and the board unanimously reinstated James's full authority over the company. For Emma, justice meant closure, not just professionally, but personally. Knowing Derek's actions hadn't succeeded in tearing her world apart gave her a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. In the weeks that followed, life began to settle into a rhythm neither Emma nor James had anticipated. Ollie thrived in the stability of their new home, his laughter filling the penthouse with joy. Emma threw herself into her work, channeling her creativity into campaigns that aligned with James's vision of making sustainable energy accessible to everyone. Their partnership extended beyond business. It grew into something deeper, built on mutual respect, trust, and shared experiences. Yet neither rushed to define what they had, content to let it evolve naturally. One crisp autumn morning, as Emma stood on the balcony, watching the sunrise paint the city skyline in hues of gold and pink, James joined her. "Thank you," he said softly, handing her a cup of coffee. She smiled, leaning slightly against him. "For what? Saving your life or ruining mine?" He chuckled, the sound warm and genuine. "For reminding me what truly matters. Purpose, family, love." His words hung in the air, unspoken promises lingering between them. As the months turned into a year, Emma and James continued to rebuild, not just their lives, but their belief in second chances. They launched a foundation dedicated to providing clean energy solutions to underserved communities. Inspired by Ollie's fascination with dinosaurs and the planet's future, at its core, the initiative reflected everything they had fought for: resilience, innovation, and hope. Together, they proved that even the most broken paths could lead to unexpected beauty. Looking back, Emma often thought about that rainy night when fate had brought her to James's doorstep. She realized now that it wasn't just kindness that had changed their lives. It was courage. Courage to trust, to fight, and to embrace the unknown. And as she watched James play dinosaurs with Ollie on the living room floor, she knew they had found something rare and precious. A family forged, not by blood, but by choice. Sometimes she thought, the greatest stories are the ones we never see coming.